All right, you are now live.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So to start off, this is January 9th meeting for 2025. Welcome into New Year, everybody. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in the Mi'kmaq ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. First up is roll call. So, Jackie, the chair, already sent their regrets. I am here. Cheryl.
I am here.
Awesome. Liz. I see and heard.
I'm absent. I'm not here. I'm a ghost.
Cool. Thanks, Liz. Rhiannon. Here, I see you.
Hi.
Cheryl with an S, I don't see. Doreen. That is how you pronounce your name, right?
Sorry, yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Zoe.
Yes.
Great. And Sonia, we haven't heard from. Then I see Amy, Carla. Yes, Carla and Elizabeth. Cool. So, the first item is the annual election of chair. I'll pass this over to you, Elizabeth, so we can restart the conversation and see if we want to elect a vice chair, because I will not be accepting any nominations or putting my name forward. So we do have the opportunity to somebody take my place. It's fun, I promise. And then see what people are feeling. So over to you, Elizabeth, I think.
Okay. So I can start the annual election of chair, although the current chair is not here. And the current chair had expressed interest in potentially putting their name forward. So it would be up to the committee if the committee wanted to defer the election of the chair, or we can go forward with it. And same with the election of vice chair. But I know the only thing I kind of wanted to explain is that if we do elect a new vice chair today, then that person would take over from Hannah and chair the remainder of the meeting, which wouldn't be a problem. I can certainly send the annotated agenda to you. Just wanted to give everyone a heads up that the vice chair would be chairing the remainder of the meeting in case someone was interested and was not maybe mentally prepared to chair a meeting today. Yes, Liz.
Did you need a motion from us, or if we were going to suggest to defer?
So it's kind of a difficult one because we haven't approved the order of business yet, but we could defer it, I would say, during the order of business. But normally those elections take place first. Liz?
Thanks. I just want to clarify, if we elect a new chair and vice chair today, that becomes effective immediately. It doesn't take effect at the beginning of the next fiscal.
That is correct. It would take effect immediately during the meeting.
Wow.
Well, then I think that's unusual. I've never seen that in a committee before. Then I think we would certainly wish to defer that until a candidate who has expressed their desire to be chair was present. We would, I think, anyways want to, but I think extra, it would be a bit rough on poor old Jackie if they came back only to say, hey, guess what? Somebody's already been chair in your absence.
So what I'm hearing is we're deferring chair election. Are we also deferring vice chair election? Because there are technically two seats. So if there's somebody that doesn't want to chair but wants to vice chair, technically we can have that election and defer a chair election. There are two separate items.
Well, does anyone intend to put themselves forward for vice chair in this election? Seems like we might be deferring it.
It's possible, which is fine. Sorry, I'm about to have a bunch of little children run through my door. I'll be right back.
As we take a little pause.
They're going to be loud, so. Okay.
So like what Liz said, does it sound like we're deferring both? Unless there's opposition, it almost feels like we've got a decision there.
I would assume so. Speak now or forever hold your peace, because you're going to have to speak next month.
So I would say if you do want to defer both, when we get to the approval of the order of business, someone would just have to request, a member would have to request that either one or both items are deferred to the next meeting.
Oh,
Cool. So for here, we would then just continue to jump down the agenda.
We can go to number 2, the approval of minutes.
Cool. So number 2, the approval of minutes. Are there any error or omissions for the December 5th, 2024 minutes? No? Okay. Now's the time for a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a motioner?
I'll put a motion to approve the minutes.
Cheryl first. Do I have a second?
Second, Cheryl.
Cool. Thanks, Liz. All right, so the minutes of December 5th are approved as circulated. And all in favor say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. They're moved. Yes, did that correctly?
Yep, that passes.
Cool. Awesome. A little rusty, guys. Okay, so number 3, approval of the order of business and approval of additions or deletions. Are there any additions or deletions from the clerk's office?
There are no additions or deletions from the clerk's office.
Okay, so now's the time. Would anybody like to add a motion to the order of business for tonight? Chair, vice chair elections.
Oh yeah, I would very much. I'd love to move a motion so much. I move that we defer the election of chair and vice chair to the next meeting, please. Would someone like to second that great motion?
I would love to second that excellent motion, Liz.
All in favor of motion that has been put forward, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say nay. All right, the motion carries. Vice chair elections and chair elections will be next month. Okay, and with that, can we move on to 4? Or do I have to do something else?
Nope, you are good to move on to item number 4.
Fantastic. Good job, team. All right. Any business arising out of the minutes? Is there anything? No, I don't think so. No, didn't think so. Any declarations of conflict of interest for any of the agenda items coming up? Hearing none, that's great. There is no deferred business. Have we received any correspondence, petitions, or delegations?
No correspondence or petitions have been received by the clerk's office.
Great. And no petitions.
Petitions.
Okay, cool. Okay, so 7.3 presentations. So we have a guest here with us, Linda. She is going to give us a presentation on the work that she does in DEI sustainability, a key to the advancement of women and gender equity. So Linda, I can give you the floor. I think Elizabeth is going to make you co-chair so you can share your screen and present for us. It's also nice to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Hannah. That was fast. I was expecting like another 20 minutes, but okay.
We work swiftly here.
Yes. Okay, I'll share my screen. Oh, I don't think I can share my screen. Let me see.
You should
Oh, yes, I can now.
able, okay.
Yes, yes, I can everybody see okay?
Great.
Okay, excellent. So, well, hello everyone. My name is Linda Espinosa Valencia. I'm one of the co-founders of Ventura Collective, a Latina women-owned equity, diversity, and inclusion consulting collective. And I'm very grateful to all of you to opening this space to talk about the importance of DEIA's sustainability through the application of international standards and management systems as a key to advance women and gender equity. Before I start with my presentation, I just want to say that I'm grateful to the Mi'kmaq First Nation peoples and all original peoples of Turtle Island who continue to fulfill their responsibilities as guardians and stewards of these lands. And I continue to learn and honor my responsibilities as a settler in their lands. Okay, well, let's dive right in because I don't have a lot of time and I have a lot of information for you. So if we ask 100 people, what is diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility in organizations, companies, and or governments, we will probably get around 100 different answers, which takes us to the main challenge that we're facing right now. And this primary challenge that we face is the DEI professionals and advocates face with organization is that many organizations have their own idea of what DEIA is. Some perceive it as a merely matter of morality, virtue signaling, or a nice to have. Some other treat it as an ad hoc initiative or a charitable effort aimed to helping individuals from equity-deserving communities rather than a strategic and integral part of their operations. But without a consensus or a standard, it is hard to understand the vital process that DEIA is in organizations. In reality, DEIA should be a management system that is vital for the function and success of any organization, just like legal, just like finances, just like cybersecurity or any other system in organization. So when I talk about DEIA as a management system, I pictured a house that has a strong foundation, strong pillars, and a roof that protects our efforts in DEIA. But unfortunately, currently we see this, sporadic efforts. Some organizations have some, oh gosh, just 1 second. I'm having a situation with my computer. There you go. We see sporadic efforts. Some organizations have some strategy that is usually based on the good intentions of, oh God, of some leaders that are very committed to DEIA, and we see lots of trainings, lots of external communications in websites and social media, and very little data extraction and internal infrastructure. So when we don't have a house and a roof to protect our efforts, the inevitable winds of change of leadership, political rhetoric, budget cuts, societal events, fear, come and they blow those efforts. Leaving usually the DEIA person and or team to deal with the aftermath. And unfortunately, in many occasions, this person either losing their job or they are quitting because they don't feel supported in the organization. A DEIA service management system is the strategic roof that will allow any organization to plan, deploy, manage, and protect the services and or projects that we consider to be DEIA today, like training, data extraction, internal infrastructure, and external relationships. As you can see in this graphic, all services have the same importance as they are the pillars of our house. So, how do we not allow the winds of change push all our DEI efforts and keep the momentum of all the services that we're giving, like the book clubs and trainings and all the other amazing initiatives already doing in an organization? Well, let me introduce you to one of the best tools out there to build a DEIA service management system, which is the Diversity and Inclusion Service Management, DISM, based on the international standard ISO 30415. But before I dive into the tool, let me tell you a little bit about the International Organization for Standardization for those who are not familiar with it. The International Organization for Standardization, or ISO, is an independent organization who is non-governmental. It has a membership of 167 national standard bodies, including the Standards Council of Canada, which Ventura Collective is part of. They're based in Geneva, Switzerland, and they bring together experts to share knowledge and develop voluntary, consensus-based, market-relevant international standards that support innovation and provide solutions to global challenges. Now that we talk about the organization, let's talk a little bit about the standard. The first diversity and inclusion ISO standard, called the Human Resource Management Diversity and Inclusion, ISO 30415, 2021. I know the name is a tongue twist, but that's how they name the standards. And it was developed over 10 years with an international lens. It is relevant to the following United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. It is gender equality, decent work and economic growth, reduce inequality, and is guided by the principles of the human rights at work. Fun fact, the insurance industry in Europe and the US are already adopting the diversity and inclusion ISO 30415 as the golden standard for corporate D&I. Lloyd's of London, Zurich, and AJ Gallagher are already underwriting products utilizing the ISO 30415. This standard was designed to be measurable and scalable to the needs of all types of organizations, for both profit and nonprofit, and all industries, including government. It encompasses an exhaustive maturity assessment that includes all areas of the organization: governance, human resources, product delivery, supply chain, and other constituents. And it produces a domino effect, spreading DEIA to suppliers and other organizations involved in the organization. This standard provides a roadmap to achieve sustainability for DEIA efforts and democratization of responsibility and the risk related for not having DEIA processes. Remember the image with the person crying that I had a little bit before? Well, the standard is an excellent tool to avoid that situation. When we have a roadmap and roles and responsibilities and KPIs in a continuous improvement system, then one person won't be in charge of solving systemic inequalities in a 4,000 people organization or a whole city. Well, we talk about the ISO standard. Now let me talk about the methodology, which is called the Diversity and Inclusion Service Management. This methodology, based on the ISO 30415, was developed by James Felton Keith. James is an award-winning engineer and economist turned labor leader who was the first Black LGBTQI+ person to run for federal office in the US. In his work as an activist, he realized that companies and organizations couldn't understand DEIA, and that's why it was so hard for them to implement any kind of meaningful systemic change. And James consulted the team at the US ISO working group to develop the ISO 30415. And once the standard was published, he developed the DISM methodology. And James said, and I quote, "We use change management as a map in other disciplines like accounting with a certified public accountant, change management, and information technology with IT service management. So we've done this before, we can do it again with DIA." So what is this methodology? Well, it introduces the standard as the Diversity and Inclusion Service Management Framework, just like any other service that we manage in an organization: accounting, legal, security, etc. And the DISM methodology provides organizations and their employees with the tools to create a roadmap to develop an organization-wide strategy through a maturity model that will help advance equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility, and minimize the risk associated with the absence of that structure. I'm almost done. This is just diving a little bit more into this methodology. And as you can see, the methodology introduces the inclusion maturity model integration when an organization is in a process of a continuous improvement, assessing, designing policy frameworks, assigning roles and responsibilities, and deploying services. And as you can observe in this graphic, deploying services is considered maturity 4, but most organizations start there, right? Just deploying the trainings or putting things on their websites or social media without considering where they currently stand, the design of policies, and the assignment of roles and responsibilities. That is why so many times we're left not understanding why our DEIA efforts are not impactful or they don't have the desired results. So, as we have explored in this short presentation, considering DEIA as a service management system allows organizations to know where your organization is under DEIA efforts and risk management, identify the opportunity areas, write down policies that will support accountability both for individuals and the organization to ensure DEIA sustainability, and we will give the tools to both employees and organizations to protect themselves. And I will finish this presentation inviting everyone to let us move DIA from good intentions and performative actions to actually driving systemic change so we can actually advance and sustain women's and gender equity. That's it for me. Any questions? I know I threw a lot at you, but I only had 10 minutes, and this is usually a longer presentation.
Thanks, Linda. We have an order of questions that we'll go through, so I'll just follow the order. First up is Zoe. Zoe, any questions for Linda? Comments?
Thank you for the presentation. I don't have any question.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Zoe.
Zoe. Cheryl, you're actually up next.
Okay, I have a couple questions. So this is quite interesting for me because I know like Member 2 First Nation has ISO certification, but not a lot of other First Nations or First Nation organizations or governments have ISO certification other than Member 2. But I'm just wondering like how much components like under the D&I like scope are Indigenous focused in this model? Because I was trying to weigh out what's the best option for like Indigenous people. Is it going through this ISO diversity and inclusion approach, or is it going through like Canadian Council for Aboriginal Business, their professional accreditation for Indigenous relations, which gives you a really specialized D&I lens with an Indigenous kind of lens on it, like a focus on Indigenous relationships. So I'm just kind of curious if you can touch on, like, is it just general D&I awareness kind of model approach, or are there specific components like that deal with Indigenous populations or African Nova Scotian populations? Or okay, so that's one question. And then I noticed that you were talking a little bit about supply chain. So this makes me think about some of the initiatives that we did in the city and what other organizations are doing, especially towards Indigenous reconciliation. They're going to work a lot more with Indigenous companies. That's one of their metrics that they're trying to measure and capture. So I'm wondering, how are you doing that, or what kind of supports are you putting in place? Because I look at the Canadian Council for Aboriginal Business once again, and they have a supplier champion program where they have all of these Indigenous business listed, and you can get monthly updates on which businesses, so you can pull out if you wanted to partner with somebody who's making lobster traps or something like that. They have a list of companies that are doing it. So I'm just kind of curious how you're filling that piece in as well. Okay.
Thank you, Sharon, for your questions. They're great questions, and we get asked a lot. We work on an international lens, so we have clients in Latin America, US, and Canada, and that's a question that we get a lot in Canada. You know, how can we incorporate our reconciliation system into this? And this is the beauty of the ISO. So the ISO, it gives you the roadmap to see, you know, these are the things that you should have, depending on your audience, in this case, your employee, your constituents, your suppliers. So if in your organization, if your organization is working with Indigenous people's Indigenous business, then that's a lens that you need to bring through your consultant. Let's say that, you know, we get a client that is very focused on reconciliation, then we'll bring an Indigenous consultant that is certified ISO in order to help gauge that difference between, you know, like African Nova Scotians or LGBTQI or any other, you know, constituents that you might have in the organization, right? It's a holistic way to see it. And depending on who your audience is who you're talking about, those are the policies you will put in place, right? So my question to the organization will be, you know, if reconciliation is your priority, or, you know, like working for the Indigenous peoples, what are the policies that you put in place to protect Indigenous peoples, to make sure that you are, you know, you have cultural aware people working directly with them. So it's kind of like building the system to allow that to happen. I don't know if I was clear on that. Go ahead if you have a follow-up question.
No, that gives me an idea. And then I'm just curious, how does this fit in with, like, for example, HRM already has an existing D&I framework. How does this kind of fit in and support that work that it's been doing?
So this is an international standard. So it's kind of like the highest level of D&IA that you can get, right? And it touches every single part of the organization, and it has 171 kind of like the assessment includes 171 questions that you need to answer, and each of those 71 questions are divided in not each one, like all of them are divided in these 4 that we call them risk groups. So governance, human resources, product and service delivery, development and delivery, and supplier diversity and other constituents. And I think that's something that really sets this framework apart from other frameworks, because it doesn't only work within the organization, saying like, oh, you need to have this training, or you need to have these policies, or you need to have all this. It's like, how are you developing your suppliers to actually be into DAI as well, right? If you are creating these values, how are you asking your other constituents, how are you asking your suppliers to actually follow those values as well? So as I mentioned, there's this domino effect of DEIMA. And on top of that, it creates a lot of accountability. So there's roles and responsibilities. Oh, did someone have a...
No, it was just me. I just have one question kind of off
Go ahead.
what you're saying. Like, I know Member 2 First Nation has ISO certification. So there, I know you mentioned that, like, there's 170 questions and there's all these follow-up things to keep your ISO certification good. So I imagine this model is very much the same. So I know in Member 2, when they did this within their First Nation structure, they actually had to hire an ISO kind of coordinator to kind of do all of that work. Is that kind of the approach here as well?
Absolutely. So this is this is a long-term commitment, right? Any ISO that you can, like, there's quality control, there's like so many ISOs, like there's thousands and thousands of ISO that are developed with an international lens, as I mentioned. So all of them are a long-term commitment. So they're not like, I'm a 6-month, I'm going to do this and you got there. It's a continuous improvement process. So once you do like your first cycle of assessment, development of policy, assign of roles and responsibilities, and deployment of services, then you need to continue to audit those. Is that having the impact that we wanted to have? Is this, is this working properly? Yes, perfect, continue. No, okay, how do we pivot? How can we improve this? And that's something that we are not seeing in DEI usually, right? Like, people think that they get there, right? You arrive there, you are inclusive, you are diverse, and that's it. And that is not the case. As we know, like, as humans, we change. Things need to be constantly in constant improvement. So that's what the ISO brings as well.
Thanks, Linda. We're going to move on to the next person just in the interest of time and try and get through all the questions. So Liz, you're up next. Any questions?
Thanks for the presentation. It was great. And you're a very engaging presenter, which is always very welcome.
Thank you.
Is sort of the main thrust of the presentation that you think that the Halifax Regional Municipality should adopt this standard as part of our governance processes?
100%. Like, if you ask me, this should be the standard of diversity, equity, and inclusion in every organization, because, as you said, it has an international lens. It really creates a system of continuous improvement where there's not the responsibility of one person, of just a small group of people, to the responsibility of, as I said, solving systemic inequalities, right? But it's the responsibility of every person in the organization, of course, with leadership having the heaviest lift of that, and not leaving it just to the racialized people, not only leaving it to LGBTQI+, to keep teaching leaders. But there's like KPIs, there's roles and responsibilities, there's this continuous improvement process.
Thanks.
Elizabeth,
you,
just before we
Liz.
come back to you, Liz. Elizabeth?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify as this discussion is taking place that this presentation is for information sharing purposes from this organization.
Correct.
That's all.
Because this is a very new standard. Thank you for that, Elizabeth, because yeah, this is a brand new standard. It was published in 2021, as I mentioned. So even though Standards of Canada, which is the ISO arm of the ISO in Canada, very little Canadian organizations know about it. So part of this for me is to get that information out there.
Thanks, Linda.
Definitely super helpful for us to have that context. So really appreciate it.
Thank you, Liz.
Any other questions, Liz? Cool. Rhiannon, any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. Hi, Linda. Thank you very much for your presentation. Similar to Liz, I think you kind of answered my question. I was kind of wondering contextually where this is fitting. This sounds interesting, but yeah, I think I'm maybe a little tripped up on like how this relates to us or like what to do with this interesting information. So I guess we'll say like thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for that comment and that person. I think it is in all our best interest to start talking about DEI and A as a system management of our experiences versus this like, oh, it's only the moral thing to do. It is absolutely the right thing to do and the moral thing to do, but we need to move away from only thinking about DEI like that. And, you know, whatever is your sphere of influence, you know, to start asking for accountability. And in this case, being the advisory, you know, for women and gender equity, you know, committee, like how are we asking for accountability and systemic change in, you know, in the region, in the city, in Nova Scotia, right? Like how are we doing it? So now with this new standard, it actually gives us the tool to have a system in place. So yeah, just for everybody to know.
Thanks, Linda. Doreen, you're up.
Yeah, thanks for the context, because as you know, I like connecting the dots. The rest of the committee knows this, to try and like, how do we frame this in our context? So Elizabeth, thank you for saying this is for information only, because I do want to, first of all, thank you, Linda, for the presentation, but also recognize that I know that there are several people and staffers around this table that are working on this. And I think we are seeing some systemic measures that are being put in place. So I guess my question, and maybe for clarification, because the other thing I know about this group is that we all have expertise in our own organizations and our backgrounds in this field. I've worked with some international standards. I worked with the provincial government, so had a lot of this kind of work come down. And one of the things that we found, anytime we had a group come in and say, hey, here's a great standard to use, or here's, here's a structure that will work for you, like don't start with the project, start with making sure we understand the problem, like however that circle of, I think you were calling levels of maturity, however that is described. I mean, those are very critical steps. So I'm curious, because I didn't see it in the presentation, and it could be because of the amount of time. I heard you reference working with companies and organizations. Wondering what kind of successes you've had with public service and governments, because those are two very different kinds of beasts in information. And one of the challenges I found in working with in this field at the provincial level and trying to navigate, here's what should work for you guys, but to find out that really most of the work that's been done and the successes have come from work done with very large institutions or very large companies, but they tend to be private, and we have public interests at play here as well. So I'm just curious what comments you would have with that.
Thank you so much for that question. So this standard is pretty new. But even though it's pretty new, like places like in France and a couple of municipalities there, they're already implementing the ISO 30415. Actually, Europe will be the spearhead of this because they they're very well knowledgeable on international standards like the ISO, and is in Geneva, as like this big international organization is in Geneva. So some of the ISO standards then in the Americas will be kind of like what is it, like by choice. Like in Europe are already by law. If you want to engage with the government, you must have all these ISOs, right? That's one. So some municipalities in France are already doing this work. And in the US, the city of Atlanta is already working with this standard. They just started last year. So I don't have a full-on case because I said this is a long-term commitment, but I can tell you that my organization, Ventura Collective, works with actually small companies. Two of our first clients when we started offering this were two organizations that were under 25 people. Because the beauty of this standard is that it can be malleable to the needs of the organization. So you don't have to apply every single thing, but it applies to what you have and what you need to build, right? So in the case of a small organization, it's sometimes easier because they don't have anything, right? Sometimes they don't even have an HR department, right? So we start building those blocks to actually create a system of continuous improvement, right? So the standard, it wasn't meant for only corporations or only big organizations. It was meant to be malleable to the necessities of either a government or a small municipality or a big corporation, right? So we have actually different clients, different sizes, different industries working with the standard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Doreen,
Thanks,
for the
Linda.
question.
That leaves me. I don't have any questions, Linda. We had a fuller presentation last year, which was awesome. Sorry, team. I should have mentioned that this was an information for us to consider other things at the beginning of Linda's presentation, just as like when new things come up, it's good to have them in the back of our mind. I know the team is already working very hard on these kinds of things, but you never know what you might learn when things are presented here. So that was my bad. Should have put that out there. Are there any final questions for Linda before we let her go? No? Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much, Linda. We appreciate you coming out and sharing the information with us.
Hannah,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but I think you missed Zoe.
Oh, did I miss Zoe?
Zoe went
did you?
first, I believe.
Oh, did you? Oh,
Yeah.
my bad. Sorry. I was like, I saw Rhiannon going like this, and I was like, Rhiannon, I think you're pointing to Zoe, but probably something
Oh
different.
no, I
Anyways,
was
my
pointing to
bad.
you because you unmuted. Sorry.
My gosh, sorry, my bad. This is what Zoom will teach you.
Well,
Thanks, Amy.
I just want to say thank you so much for listening to me. I'll be the lady yapping about the ISO for the next every time you see me somewhere in Nova Scotia. But I really appreciate your time. I appreciate all the work that you do, and I look forward to learn more because I recently moved to Nova Scotia. Actually, I was living somewhere else before, so look forward to see all the work that you're all doing. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Okie dokie. So, moving on. Number 8. Has any more information been brought forward? There is no more information that has been brought forward. So, number 9.
Sorry,
Reports
just
and-
before we move past that,
Yeah.
I'm having an uncomfortable feeling, and I want to share that uncomfortable feeling with the group so you can all be uncomfortable with me. I think we were shading dangerously close to procurement with that presentation. I'll just say, I know it was an information item, but I think we were dangerously close to the procurement space there, and I just wanted to say that one out loud.
That's fair. Yeah, we talked about it, and I missed the agenda review meeting, but Linda came to me and was like, yo, I want to share this information. And I knew she is trying to recruit people, but I was hoping and thought we had very specifically been like, this is just an information session for you to share the work that you were doing to see if it like could be things that we could think about and not to try to sell us on it.
Oh,
Mhm.
no, for sure. And I think she actually did a really beautiful job of making an informative only presentation. And like she gave some really great information. She's a lovely speaker. It was great to see her. She looked like she was having a lot of fun. She's clearly very passionate about ISO, which somebody's got to be. But I think we should give some careful consideration to how appropriate it is to have a private consultant coming to present to a municipal committee about their area of expertise, which is also what they do private consulting for. I just think there's a need for a little, just a healthy side eye at the old conflict of interest there. And I
That's
just
fair.
want to say that out loud so that it can be on the record that none of us is planning to let this turn into a backdoor pitch. And that's just going to be on the record. No motions will come out of this. None of this is just, we'll all say it out loud and then we're all just good.
100%.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, you can go first. And then Tracy.
Yeah, I just wanted to further clarify, as I mentioned before, also just for the record, this was made clear when this presentation was accepted by the chair and accepted when I reached out to the presenter to accept the presentation request, that this was specifically an opportunity for them to share information about their organization. It was for information sharing purposes only, and there was no request being asked of the committee.
Tracy,
all.
go ahead. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Good evening, folks. Just a couple of things from my point. I am looking into ISO and what it means and where it sits and how it feels. I'm very interested in it. That doesn't necessarily mean I would go with that company or whatever, but I think it is something that we need to learn and know more about as the Office of Diversity and Inclusion and as we move this work forward. And since I have the floor for a minute, I would also like to encourage you, and Carla, I'm working from my personal computer, and maybe you could put this in the chat, but the Office of Diversity and Inclusion was recently audited by the Auditor General, I think that's the proper title. And I'd encourage you to look at that audit because it does talk about how our office should be looking at KPIs and measurements and accountabilities. So it's a really exciting piece of work. It's going to help us move and shift the organization. It also raises the authority of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion to ensure that business units are making this a priority and not an afterthought, and that it's to be built into business plans and measurements. So I just wanted to let you know the ISO piece is of great interest to me, and I think to our team, but also some of the work might align with what would be in the D&I audit.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Tracy. Doreen?
Thank you. And Tracy, that was really valuable context that you provided, and I truly appreciate that. Because one of the, and Liz, thank you for bringing this up, because I had a major ick through a lot of it, not because of the content, but how it felt pitchy to me. Exactly like how you said, Liz, but at the same time, one of the cautions that I always have when I feel and see these kinds of things is how much of this work is actually done with public service. And I don't think she answered my question. I wasn't going to push that because it's such a different beast when we're working in public service. It's not just what our organization looks like, but what does our front facing and who's our audience? She answered that a little bit, but I would be so cautious using an international standard on our lovely little homegrown pieces here in Nova Scotia, where we're trying to develop the uniqueness and supports around what we do. And I feel your office is really creating that. It needs, like you said, the kick or the oomph or the teeth, and maybe that's something we can help support. So whenever you need a committee or you'd like to present something to us to say, hey, we need this, I think that's something that I'm speaking personally, something I would be able to support, but I'm sure, many people in the committee would be able to say, hey, how do we give teeth? Because I'm looking at Hannah smiling. Accountability is a big word. We'd like to be able to say, hey, at least let's check some things off that we're making progress on.
Yeah.
So anyway, my 2 cents.
Absolutely. So if nothing else, I think we had a good information session and we know what we want and what we don't want. So go team. Any final comments before we move on? No, we're all good now. Cool. Just so you know, whoever takes chair or vice chair gets to make these decisions of who comes to the table next time. So if you have big feelings, just putting that out there. All right, so point 9, reports and discussions. 9.1.1, proposed 2025 meeting schedule. That was circulated? Yes, I'm not. Yes.
Yeah, that was circulated.
Cool. So can we have a mover and a seconder for the approval of the proposed 2025 meeting schedules, please?
I'll move to approve because I love to say it.
Thanks, Liz. Seconder?
I can second that.
Doreen, perfect. Thank you. All right, and so the Women and Gender Equity Advisory Committee has approved the proposed 2025 Women and Gender Equity Advisory Committee meeting schedule as outlined in the staff memorandum. That's a sentence, y'all.
I don't think we've approved it yet, babe. I think we still have to call the question.
Oh, right, yeah, true. Thank you.
The motion's on the floor. If anyone does have any questions about the proposed schedule or has an issue with any of the dates, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions anyone may have. But if not, we can, or the chair or the vice chair can call for the question. It's up to the committee.
Comments, queries? Okay, all approved, say aye. All
Aye.
opposed, say nay. I'm not repeating the sentence again, so it's approved. Great. Okay, item 9.1.2, update on the parking lighting strategy. Amy, you're up.
Yes, this is just a brief update. And Tracy and Carla, if you want to add anything too, feel free to jump in. I'm kind of presenting on behalf of staff here, but we wanted to give you the update that the park lighting strategy that the Women's Advisory Committee had advised on had gone to, here I need to get my notes here because it's a very long committee name.
Amy, sorry, I don't know if anyone else is having this issue. I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you. The audio seems to be.
Yeah, it's hard. Okay, one second.
Thanks, Tracy. Bye.
Okay. I had 1 second. This might take me a second. Can you hear me? You can? Yeah. Okay. I'm in the office, so I apologize if there's any background noise that's distracting, but I'll try to be quick so you don't hear too much.
That might have just been me. It was just cutting out a bit for me, but maybe that
think it
wasn't
was for
coming up in
everybody.
anyone else's.
Okay, that's good to know. Good. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know, Elizabeth. Yeah, just wanted to give an update. It's a brief update, and Carla, if you want to jump in, feel free to add anything. But the park lighting strategy that the Women's Advisory Committee, it was called Women's Advisory Committee at that point, advised on, went to the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee meeting on December 12th. So the strategy was passed at that committee, and so that means that it'll be going on to regional council in the near future. There's not been a date set yet, but keep your eyes open because there'll be discussion at council likely on the strategy as well. But we wanted to bring it forward to your attention for a few reasons. First off, because the committee had advised on this strategy sort of early on. So sort of reflecting back the impact of the work that you folks have been doing, but also personally, and I would say my other colleagues as well would agree that this strategy really, I think, has a strong focus on some of the pieces around equity and some of the principles that that we use in the work that we do in the community safety office around women and non-binary and gender diverse folks' safety in public spaces. So it feels like a great success story because, of course, more work is to come in terms of implementing this strategy, but things like looking at lighting through the lens of activating parks later on into the evening and shoulder seasons. That's something that we see a lot in our work, that, you know, if we had more access to parks in those shoulder seasons, which I feel like in Canada, that's like almost all of the year. That's more access to playgrounds, to recreation, more affordable, accessible options for folks, which have an impact on everyone. But of course, women and gender diverse folks who are playing, you know, key caregiving roles in their families. So pieces like that, pieces like looking at integrating these kinds of safety assessments and looking at lighting through a lens of equity as part of the actual planning process for lighting in parks, I think are all, great steps forward in the work that we're doing. So yeah, just wanted to bring that to your folks' attention. I know Elizabeth had attached that as an attachment, so you can kind of dive into it further if you'd like, and I guess keep an eye open. We'll also keep you updated, like once we hear it's going to council, we can share that with the committee.
Thanks, Amy. So first up, Doreen, any comments, questions, queries for Amy? No? Great. Zoe? No? Cool. Cheryl? Awesome. Liz?
I just want to say that I appreciate you, Amy, and I love it when you talk about park safety.
Thanks, Liz.
Same. Rhiannon?
No, but thank you.
Cool. I also don't have anything. Thank you for the update though, Amy. I appreciate it. I remember having that conversation, and so I appreciate having the update, knowing where it's standing right now. So thank you very much. Any other final questions, comments, queries? No? Sweet.
And I
Awesome.
should just say, Hannah, I can make it clear that Stephen Cushing was the lead on that report. And so if the committee wants to be connected to him again at any point in time to learn more about the implementation or whatever it might be, yeah, we can definitely.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right, anything else? Cool. Moving on to item 10, added items. There are no other added items, right, Elizabeth?
Yeah, there weren't any added items.
The date of the next meeting is, somebody help me out here. I don't have that.
February 6th.
February 6th. Great. Because we all approved that. So we'll all be there. And I'm assuming that's virtual.
That is TBD, I would say. That's normally decided at the agenda review.
Sounds good. So we'll figure that out, and then that's it. So anybody want to move this meeting to over?
Before we go, I have to do my Columbo routine. One more thing. It's not an agenda item. I just want to know, because at the last meeting you said that we would know this meeting who our new friends on the committee are going to be. Do we know who our new friends will be?
So the appointments are actually going to be made on Tuesday. So the new counselors will be at the February meeting. I can go back and see. So they've been nominated. They just haven't been appointed yet. I'll have to go back and check, but I can let everyone know who the two counselors were that were nominated.
So we'll all receive an email in our inbox on Tuesday.
But what about the non-counselor members? What about our friends from among the community, our new committee members? Yeah, but I was told we would know today who they are, and I'm not going to be here in April, and I want to know who I'm handing off to. All right, fine.
I'm not sure. In terms of the appointments to the committee from volunteer members, I'm not sure about that. Only about the counselors will be appointed this month.
Liz, it's okay. We can just watch it online and know.
I mean, I will. I'm going to watch all of you guys on YouTube once I'm not on the committee anymore, because I'm going to miss you. But I just, like to make new friends. I like to know who's coming onto the committee.
We'll send you an email, Liz.
Let us know when the in-person ones are so we can come and meet the new people.
Yeah, that's it. When they're new. Well, it's on the website, Hannah, so we can look it up on the website.
Okay, we will
sit there at our public forum, whisper to each other, be rowdy because we won't be members of the committee anymore, so we'll have no public duty.
I'm liking this idea more and more, and I'm also liking that this is on the record and publicly out there for the people.
Anyone is welcome to come to the committees and watch me misbehave once I'm no longer a member of this committee and required to behave.
Okay, so on that
All it
note,
takes is a requirement, Liz?
That is the only thing that makes it happen, Doreen.
Okay, I'm gonna keep that one in mind.
anyone want this meeting finished? So we can take it offline?
I move to
Thanks,
adjourn.
Liz. Okay, meeting adjourned. Good job, team.